RailNet Europe. Good afternoon and kindly welcome on today's first Rail Freight Corridor Network RNE session. At first, I want to say that we decided to continue with the session in this year, this year 22, due to very successful experience in last year. Last year we organized 3 sessions and due to good experience we decided to continue also this year. This year we planned altogether 4 sessions. Today is first session, and then second session will took place in 3rd March with theme about train information system and contingency management. Then is planned 3rd session on 28 April with a theme about customer information platform, rail facilities portal and network and corridor information. And it's also planned 3rd session on 16 May. It will be together with International Union for Road and Rail Combined Transport and RNE, of course. And yes, today is very interesting session. We will talk and discuss about TTR, IT landscape, and about path information system. And today, together with us, is two important persons. At first, because it is a little bit changed, as you can see, that this means that first on the floor will be Aleksandar Markelic, head of CM and TTR IT by RNE, and then second, Ms. Ivona Haban. Before we start, I only want to say some information as follow. This means that each speakers, of course, will present their own slides. All participants should ask questions by raising hands on the end of presentation, and the session will be recorded and published on our RFC Network YouTube, and probably if we don't have enough time for your comments and answers, please post your questions on the chat, and it will be answered afterwards. This means later. So it is also described here on the screen. These some rules, let me say, and I think that we will not lose the time with this my introduction, but I propose that we start with first session. So I kindly and warmly welcome Mr. Aleksandar Markelic, and please, Aleksandar, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Dear Miloš, most kindly thank you for this introduction. So, as Miloš mentioned, my name is Aleksandar Markelic, Head of Capacity Management in TTR IT. In these next few minutes, I will try to present to you what do we do there, what kind of architecture we are building, what is our, let's say, target solution, what is our expectations for timetable year 2025. And yes, let's see at the end of the presentation what kind of questions, concerns you might have. So without further ado, I will start with my presentation. So let me firstly emphasize that since I don't know how much you're aware of TTR and what we are doing, I will try to keep the explanations really on let's say on a basic level. So for some of you that know all those things, please don't be frustrated with my let's say basic explanations of the items which you are about to show. So let's go. So first of all, what is this what we are doing? So what we are building, we are actually building one digital platform, one digital solution, which as a goal is having that without touching the physical network, the physical infrastructure, we are trying to increase the capacity. If you're talking in, let's say, IT vocabulary, this will mean that with existing hardware, we are changing software in order to get better performance. This is what we are trying to achieve with TTR. This platform, which is consisted of several applications, we will go through them later on. We are trying to cover the complete TTR process and IT landscape. With the TTR process, if you are part of these process groups, you will know what we are talking about there. This is a lot of these changes about how we are, let's say, requesting the train path, what kind of deadlines, etc., etc. Further on, the third point, on one platform, so in this one digital platform, we are trying to connect different ecosystems. So first of all, we are building centrally in RNA this platform, but from one side, we are trying to connect ecosystems from the applicants, and from other side, we are trying to, of course, connect ecosystems of the infrastructure managers. And as a last point, which is more as a guideline, we are considering MVPs as a guideline for, let's say, first implementation. Why we are doing this? Well, we are doing this because we are fully aware that what we plan to do in TTR is not a simple project. It's quite complex. And MVPs are actually the way how we plan to avoid this complex, not avoid them, make them easier, better to say. Because we will try to, let's say, first implement some very simple use case scenarios. And by doing that, we have expectations that we will have some, let's say, new knowledge, new experience. And based on that, we could actually, let's say, attack more, let's say, severe and more complex problems in the future. Having said that, let's observe what we are having right now as a let's say, ecosystem inside of RNA directly. So here in the bottom, you can see actually our referential database. This is what we call Big Data 2.0. On this level, we are storing those PLCs, SLCs. I hope that you know what I mean by that. Segments, sections, lines, even in RAID facilities portal, some special, let's say, points, etc., etc. The next level, we are having, let's say, ecosystem which is holding the long-term capacities. There we are having applications such as ECMT, TCR, etc. ECMT as application, it's storing, let's say, long-term positive capacity. TCR, however, stores negative capacity. TCR is short-term for temporary capacity restriction, meaning that from some time, let's say in the future, we plan to close a track to maintenance or any other reason. Next level, we are having, I think, the most familiar system for all of you, which is PCS, which is in this regards even short-term, even 1 year, like as a short-term comparison with this, let's say, second layer. And then at the end, when everything is solved, when everything is assigned and trains start to, well, let's say, run, then we are following the train movements across the TIS system. So if you look at a slightly bit different perspective, first of all, we are setting down the ground topology. So as we said, all those PLC, SLCs, segments, etc. On top of those segments and PLCs and all this ground topology, we are setting up capacity, both positive and negative capacity. On top of this capacity, we are now executing the process of train path ordering and train path allocation, meaning PCS. And then again, on top of that, we are having this TIS, which is tracking the train movement. So once more, digital infrastructure information, digital capacity management, digital train information. So in today's presentation, I will try to present you digital capacity management. So how it looks. So we saw there that in center of everything is a big data layer. Once more, big data in a sense, all stations are there, both PLCs, SLCs, etc., sections and lines. Around that, we are building central TTR IT framework. This is actually applications which are developing in RNA, meaning PCS. Actually, the next major version of PCS, capacity broker, you will hear about that later on. ECMT, TCR2, etc. There we are splitting those applications in two layers, applicant layer and IAM layer. Please pay attention that here we are not calling anymore ERU layer, because applicants is a wider term, because in future we will have situation where even non-ERU companies would actually be part of the complete process. Around this layer, we're having messaging module. Messaging module is nothing else than just, let's say, interface. To be more specific, it's a common interface. It's a channel of communication between RNA's application and outside world. Outside world is really everything which is not strictly RNA. Around this data exchange layer, we are having external systems. And there we are having a huge amount of applications, legacy applications, which in some situations are lying on the applicant side, sometimes are lying on IAM side. And what does it mean? It means actually that we will have from applicant side some applications, let's say for train path ordering, which this ERU company for this particular example is using, and needs to be connected to, let's say, PCS or maybe ECMT. While from this side, we are having some of the IAMs, the applications which are being used for organizing these train paths on IAM side, which again also needs to be connected to, let's say, RNS application inside of a central IT framework. How this connection looks like between them? Well, here you see that from one side, we are having users which can be infrastructure manager, allocation body, applicants, etc. They can use either their own mobile application, our web application, or their own legacy application, and they are connecting to us as a RNA. They're connecting to us via two channels. First channel is the common interface channel, and the second one is a channel which is being used for web applications, which is nothing else, this web browser applications, which you are typing in the, let's say, URL of applications and you're getting it. This is being done via channel of HTTPS. On the other side, of course, you will face the applications of TTR, which I mentioned here several times already, ECMT, PCS, TCR2, TIS as well, supported by big data and reporting system. What is extremely important to mention for all this connection is that each time for any of the connections that we are having between users and our ecosystem, they must be done in TAF-TAP TSI standard. This is crucial. I mean, we cannot even set up different interface in these regards if you're using common interface. So TAF-TAP TSI is a must for the complete project. Now we're coming to the more complex picture of how this, let's say, ecosystem looks like on the level of the RNA. And here I will not explain everything really in the top details because I don't think that you are really interested how this technically works. I will try to explain the very short, let's say, usage example or let's say, yeah, use case scenario with some data flows. So what we are showing here, since we are, let's say, trying to optimize all the communications across applications to be done on an interface level and not on a manual level, not in a level of, let's say, Excel import, export-import, or even, for example, that somebody is typing from one system to another. We are here observing only the particular messages which are being exchanged machine to machine level. So this is how we see the ecosystem, how it should work in the future, at least as for international traffic. So I will start, let's say, with the TCR tool. Since I'm not familiar how much you know about applications, I will try to give a very short, very basic explanation for all these tools that you just understand why we are doing this, what we are doing. So TCR tool is standing for temporary capacity restriction. This is the application which is stored at RNA, which should be primarily used by infras in order to push in public the plans when they plan to actually maintain their tracks. And not only that, they also plan to do that in order to make coordination one between each other, with the neighbors. So I will give you one example. Since I'm in Austria, I'll use the example of Austria and Slovenia. From time to time, we are having this, let's say, maintenance between lines, which is from, let's say, Villach to Jesenice and from Jesenice to Ljubljana. Let's imagine that OBB is having scenario that do some maintenance from, let's say, Villach to Jesenice from January to March. And without knowing those plans, CGI is planning to do maintenance from Jesenice to Ljubljana from March to June. So without coordination, the complete line is losing 6 months for this international stretch. But with TCR2 and with active coordination, where those two infra could be immediately notified several months, years in advance, saying, hey, wait, maybe you could somehow get along that both of you either are starting on January or both of you are starting on March, or let's find some middle solution. This will mean that instead of spending 6 months on this international stretch, we might just lose 6 months. This is why this, let's say, interface is very crucial for usage and increase of the capacity. And once more, without physically touching the infrastructure, we would be able to manage, to be more precise, we would be managed to increase the capacity of international lines. So there we are seeing that whatever application is being used on an infra manager side, it should feed the TCR tool with the planned maintenances on their own network. So now you can imagine that across Europe, all the legacy applications are, let's say, being connected to TCR tool. And then in TCR tool, you're able to see the complete Europe, any stretch at any moment of time. These have two huge advantages. First advantage, as I mentioned, is coordination. That infras are able to, let's say, coordinate with their neighbors in order to better leverage their capacity. And the second advantage, which will be possible, of course, is directly for applicants. Let's imagine even some RUs that are getting inquiries to drive some traffic in, let's say, in some X amount of time in the future. They would be able to actually query this complete line at RNE ecosystem and get back information, is this free or not? And of course, it's not for free. They would immediately be able to give some better quote to the customer saying, yes, we can do that, but people use workaround and therefore, I don't know, maybe price is different, maybe delivery terms are different, etc., etc. So this is TCR2. Main connection, once more, main flow is actually uploading TCR messages into TCR2 and for a feedback information getting back inside of the IAM as well. TCR2, as any change is happening in TCR2 is communicating that to ECMT. ECMT is tool where it's storing positive capacity in a sense of capacity model and capacity supply, and negative capacity, which will be retrieved from the TCR2. So this is one of the most complex tools which are right now, let's say, developing. It started as a pilot last year. Now it's already starting to mature more and more and more. This tool will have several applications. We plan to store here, let's say, advanced capacity in a sense that even over 1 year capacity will be listed here, listed in a sense of free capacity slots. We call that capacity model. What is being planned that infrastructure manager would actually, using this, let's say, data flow, would upload free capacity slots inside of ECMT, and it will give information like, for example, from midnight to 1 a.m., I'm able to push 5 generic trains from point A to point B. And this will be there served as some kind of menu for the applicants. On top of that, of course, the infrastructure manager will be able to publish all the, let's say, train paths which are active. And with that information, ECMT will be able to show two main information. So capacity model, which you already explained as a generic trains, as some kind of menu and portfolio, what each infra can offer. And it will be able to show and analyze the international train paths. So one system would be able to show again on a European level how the let's say traffic is looking like across Europe. This is as a functional potential I don't think that we are building here something revolutionary. I'm sure that each infra have this functionality, but what we are building here, what is revolutionary, what is really something new, is that for the first time, there would be place where on one application, we will see European level of this scope. And this is what DCM-IT is all about. Then when we go back to the applicant with DCM-IT, we are having two main data flows. The first data flow is where applicant is actually making a query and searching for a free capacity in DCM-IT. Again, searching even over 1 year. Can be, of course, even below, but searching for the free capacity and getting back the information what is out free. And the second most important data flow is this CNA, capacity need announcements. This is one of those new TTR process, where applicant is actually uploading in advance the capacity need announcements to the DCM-IT, and this is being forwarded to IAM. Idea behind it is like, it's not exactly PET request. PET request is really official and already defined. Capacity need announcements is really something even before PET request is being sent. This is being strictly defined by this new TTR process, capacity need announcements. So we see there as a data flow via interface where each ERU or non-ERU applicant would be able to actually push this capacity need announcement instead of DCM-IT. Based on those capacity need announcements, since they have exactly the same structure, data structure as capacity models, if you can recall those generic train slots, free slots of capacity, each infra would be able to open these CNAs and see how this fits in those generic free slots which they organized for the network. And based on that, they could do far in future, say, okay, this match what I also plan, or this doesn't match, etc., etc. Next in line, we are having PCS, but not PCS, which you know right now, PCS envelope concept, but PCS capacity broker. PCS capacity broker is, we see that as a new and major version of capacity broker. I would say one of the main difference between a PCS envelope concept as you're knowing today and what will be presented after the presentation by my colleague Ivona is that the new PCS capacity broker have in itself negotiation algorithm. What it does. So right now, if you, let's say, send a PET request via PCS and everything, you have a certain risk that you will get non-harmonized international train PET. This negotiation algorithm is actually doing something new. It's going, let's take use case scenario with just two infras, just to make it very simple. As soon as it gets the information back, it's going from one infra to another, trying to ask for a better times. If times are overlapping or too much distant apart, the negotiating algorithm is going from one side to another, trying to ask better times in order to make it harmonized. What is extremely interesting here to emphasize is MVP. Even right now, as we speak, we are now in progress with this MVP called short-term ad hoc, which we are building right now between two IAMs, which will have automated train path creation, short ad hoc path creation. And there, as a goal of this MVP, we are having a goal which is saying that for international train path between those two IAMs, we are aiming that in matter of minutes, international train path request is actually fulfilled and given, assigned to the applicant. This is our goal for the, let's say, the first stage of this capacity broker. Once when we successfully develop this MVP, we will plan further on to roll out the same functionality on a horizontally and vertically. Horizontally in a sense to include other IAMs which are interested. Horizontally in a sense that we will try to implement other process inside, meaning not only ad hoc, but other process of the PCS. What is also interesting there that as a part of these MVPs, we are also building a tool called border harmonization tool, which we plan to, merge with existing tool called ITNDB. ITNDB is International Train Number Database. This is tool which will be used by certain amount of infras just to, let's say, additionally harmonize their train paths just for let's say time before capacity broker is actually ready and ready for a usage. Here is not being mentioned what is actually connection between ECMT and capacity broker. So once applicant send PET request message to the capacity broker, usually what capacity broker does or PCS does is forwarding this to infrastructure manager. Then if everything goes okay, we're getting an answer in a sense of PET details message, which is later on shared with the applicant. What we are seeing as a huge advantage in the future is that we will enable that once PET request message is being sent to the capacity broker, that if this particular infra, we have this setting and we have this agreement, that the pre-planned capacity is actually shared in ECMT, that PET request message is not even being fired towards the IM, but it's being fired in a sense surge capacity to ECMT in order to get this capacity back. This is the idea behind it. I will explain this in details in the next slide. Then we are having two more elements which I would like to address on this schema, and this is this so-called ICL or Internet Capacity Line. This is a special value used for advanced planning module or capacity models in ECMT, which in short is showing what is, let's say, the maximum amount of capacity for some particular time between point A to point B. We see there two possibilities. We see the possibility that infrastructure manager is defining that directly from their own national application, or we even see there a potential leverage of this system. Why this? Well, depending of the data quality and quantity which the infra manager A, doesn't matter which one, is sharing with this, that this is having, let's say, better or worse quality data in its database. Let's imagine that this IM A is actually sharing both freight and passenger, ad hoc, and every kind of other, let's say, trains inside of the TIS. This will mean that TIS have pretty much good database of what was happening across the years, across the network. This means that if the expert from the IMA makes a, let's say, conclusion that this particular stretch was being effectively maximally used for this last year, he can use historical data from a TIS. In a sense, we are historically, in average, I don't know, moving 5.2 trains from midnight to 1 o'clock from point A to point B. This means that this maximum capacity, let's put it as, I don't know, 5, for example, depending whatever kind of rules we take. The same rule could actually be applied across the complete network in the same sense. And the last term is actually the big data 2.0. This is just one emphasis that whenever we are, let's say, building this kind of connection requests and everything refers back to the big data. Either big data in a wider sense, meaning segments, lines, etc., or in a more tighter sense, in a sense CRD, meaning you need to use some reference data that you are getting the latest PLCs in order to send proper request and interpret properly the data back. For all these, let's say, abbreviations that you're seeing here, if you are having troubles, please, if presentation is not already shared with you, it will be shared later. You can find the full glossary on the page 16, and there you can see exactly what is being meant by all these abbreviations. Then we are having just short overview how these, let's say, requests are running. Here we're having one applicant, which is using his front end. Front end in a sense, either web application of our own, because each application, what you see there would be, there would be possibility either to use it directly via web as a web browser application, or by using it via interface, meaning you're having all the comfort of your own national application, which you're got used to use for years, but it will be connected via interface to our application. So what happens? The applicant is sending a request. Request is, let's say, landing in a capacity broker. And then capacity broker, depending from country to country, from IM to IM, depending how we have advanced technology there, is deciding where it's shooting forward this request. Is it shooting towards ECMT because, hey, maybe in ECMT we're having pre-planned capacity previously shared by this infra, or we are shooting directly to the, let's say, national application of the IAM, and then expecting either instant response, because this is automated creation of the pads. Maybe you are getting instant response because this is pre-planned capacity provided by national system, or this is really the most common situation that we shoot the request and then we wait for several days. Why? Because the request need to be manually examined by the experts. What is important to conclude here is that capacity broker, as a technology which we are developing, doesn't care what is outside of its border. We are building it in an idea that it must work with all three potential solutions. So either you're building manually your train pads, either you're having, I don't know what kind of artificial intelligence behind or something, either you're having pre-planned capacity. Capacity broker would have information, first of all, from you, what kind of technology you're using and what kind of, let's say, response time can it expect, and based on that, it will need to adopt. For applicant, of course, this can mean better comfort, lower comfort, depending on your, or let's say, because the speed of the international train path will be defined by the speed of the, let's call it, weakest link in these regards. But anyhow, capacity broker would be able to adopt to all these different technologies. So it's not reference to any of the national systems. It's really independent application, which would be programmed to work with all the others three potential scenarios. In huge requirement that this must be done in accordance with TAF TSI. This is one, let's say, condition which we cannot compromise. How are we coming to this solution? So, as I mentioned this in the beginning, we are completely aware this is not easy to achieve. It will be quite complex to come there, but we have some, let's say, 6 general steps. The first step, however, is TCR tool. TCR tool officially went into production with the 1st January. It's already there in the usage. Interfaces are already online, and now we are together with our members trying to establish as much as possible these direct interfaces across Europe. The next step, what we are now building, is further expanding the functionalities of the tool called DCM-T, in a sense that now we are building those objects of capacity model and capacity need announcements. Following that, we are trying to start or build MVP for short-term ad hoc inside of the PCS capacity broker, as we already saw in the previous slides. While we are doing on, let's say, this construction yard, so to say, we are expecting that Big Data 2.0 will be fully rolled out. Big Data 2.0 will bring certain novelties, like in RNA, all of a sudden you will have this RINF information. For those of you that maybe doesn't know what RINF is having very detailed information about each line inside of the network, if defined. Is it electrified or not? Is it what kind of gradient it has? What kind of voltage, if voltage is there at all? What kind of voltage it's there? How many tracks is there on this, let's say, line? Is it a 1-track, a 2-track, etc., etc.? And this will bring certain extension of lot of functionalities inside of the PCS and ECMT and TCR tool as well. Because all of a sudden, you will have functionality where you will say, hey, capacity broker, give me now the shortest path between point A and point B in regards that this is electrified line. Or if electrified, to be this voltage. Or for example, give me point A to point B, and if I'm driving this much wagons, how much, I don't know, power, braking power I need, percentage, because this is the gradient, etc., etc. Or if you're putting these TCRs, having, let's say, these restrictions of the capacity, and this is not 1-track, it's actually 2, 3-track line that we do know, okay, maybe just 1 track is actually occupied. Those 2 are actually still free, and we can still organize the capacity on those 2 tracks. Meaning it will be a big change for the complete ETR environment once this is done. Once Big Data 2.2 is done, Then we are dealing further on with interfaces. Interfaces, in a sense, mostly for capacity model and capacity supply. When I say that, I mean this to both IAM and applicant. This is that structure what we are showing in this API data flow diagram, if you can recall. Once all of these steps are done, then we are coming to the part of capacity supply. In capacity supply, in tool called DCM-IT, we would extend current functionalities in a sense that we would try to show in a map where we are expecting congestion or high traffic, or we will try to, let's say, organize advanced analytics simulations of what will happen in traffic if we have in this corner, I don't know, this much more trains, or we do here TCR, etc., etc. This is some, let's say, growth plan, how we plan to introduce TTR. If you go into details, what is the roadmap to come there? I will not now analyze all of those elements. This is just one overview of the tools and how is this happening across next 1-2 years. But here you see that we are having a lot of developments on a lot of different sites. I will just emphasize one of the most interesting, most exciting one, which is this MVP3 short-term ad hoc, which we plan to start really intensively to work with the, let's say, middle of this year. This is where I think it will be quite exciting to track this news, because this is my personal view, the game changer in the industry. And here, just to emphasize where we expect this positive shock, so to say, from the introducing the big data 2.0. Then we are coming to the part where we are just trying to estimate what would be ready for a timetable 2025. Because previously we are not constantly saying what is a target, not mentioning when this target is. Here is something more specific. So for timetable 2025, so we are not talking about real year 2025, we are talking about timetable year 2025, certain interfaces will not be ready, but others would be. For ERUs, we don't see so much, let's say, applicable data flows, but for infras, we definitely see, as I mentioned, TCR and huge potential with PCS. PCS, either the old PCS envelope concept, either PCS in a sense of capacity broker, so MVP. So everything should be there, either old or the new one. How much of this would actually really happen depends on two things. Depends, first of all, of each member of our own, how much resources they are able to dedicate for this particular project. From the other aspect, it also depends on us, how much resources can we actually dedicate to each of our member. Just to give you some idea, what's happening right in RNE, we are now really extending our human resources in a sense that we are now looking for a product owner for ECMT. We just hired a new technical assistant for ECMT and TCR, searching for a second technical assistant for PCS and TT-Com tool, etc., etc. So we really see a huge demand for, let's say, human resources just because of this plan to introduce the new interfaces in our ecosystem. Huge reminder, this red parts which are saying it will not be ready, this means that interface will not be ready. Under interface, we don't mean Excel, CSV, XML, import, export, neither manual update, meaning this part will still be there. It's just showing interfaces level, meaning that if somebody really wants to use this application without interfaces, with a pure Excel function or CSV function, XML function, or just to go directly in the website and use the front end of the website directly at RNE web application, this will be still possible. Of course, not with the same data quality as it would be when you're using interface, I don't know, in real time, but nevertheless. And just general overview, how we see that in the next, let's say, several years, like from the first moment when the TTR will go live up to the moment where we are having everything implemented. As you mentioned before, the timetable 2025 is being meant to go out with limited scope implementation. As you saw, particular functionality surrounding ECMT will not be there on API level. The next timetable year, 2026, we see as a full scope implementation, where we will have covered all the current defined TTR process and also IT landscape. And for the year, timetable year 2027, this is a year where we have big plans, where we will try to introduce advanced analytics inside of ECMT, the data simulation, and all the other, let's say, business intelligence systems that we see as a useful based on experience from our members. Because out there are a lot of solutions already implemented in the national applications. But as I said, never before there was a system or a database which will have this amount of data available for analysis and optimization. With this, I will conclude my presentation and open a session for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aleksandar, for this really very interesting presentation. Of course, some of participants is more, some of are less involved in this project, but of course this is one of the most important project in history of railway, I think, and I think that it's still a lot of open questions. So I propose to start with open questions, and I think that Martin Erlinger is first with raise his hand. Please.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Aleksandar, for this interesting overview. One question about this MVP on ad hoc capacity planning. I have heard from it. I knew, and you mentioned that there were two IMs, or there will be two IMs involved. I think I have heard that DB Netz will be part of it with their click and write idea.
Exactly.
And which other IM will be part of this MVP?
SBB.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. We do have, however, a lot of other, let's say, members which will be in observation mode and which might join during the course of the year. But this is, let's say, our core. This is how do we start. Just to emphasize.
Thank you. It was very concrete question and also very concrete answer. And this is the aim because yes, I think that the most important aim is that we have a lot of such discussion and to allow the different stakeholders to participate, and it is the aim that we all of us step by step is more and more involved in this TTR, because 25 is not so far from now. So please, the floor is yours for another questions, please.
Not far away, especially having in mind how the time is passing so fast with this home office and Corona.
Maybe it's a lot of open questions will come later. It's after receiving your presentation, but maybe now some of participants have something to ask, or it's something to explain, please.
I mean, it's understandable that this might be, let's say, too much of the things at once. But as we already mentioned, the presentation will be there, and at any moment you can always turn back to us to ask for additional questions via email or something, and we'll be more than happy to answer. So yeah, no pressure.
Yeah, this is also the aim of such session, that you have now contact for concrete question which can come in mind later, and here is the man who can give you the answer. So if for now it's not concrete question, maybe we can go further with another item, but at first still again thank you very much, Aleksandar, and yes, I hope that you will receive a lot of questions, and it will be fine, because it means that the TTR go further deep and more deep in practice. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Miloš. Thank you, all participants. Yeah, it was a great honor and pleasure to be here with you today. And yeah, we are counting on your support, and contact us at any time. We are more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are very good in time. So I hope that also now Miss Ivona is with us because it's the second item of today's session is a PAS information system, and this presentation is in hand of Ivona Haban, which is capacity management IT, and please, Ivona, to start.
So first of all, hello from my side. I would like to start with a little apology because my voice is not really the best today. So I still hope that you are going to enjoy this presentation and learn more about PAD coordination system without being disturbed by how I sound. But it's good that you don't know me anyhow, so you don't know how to compare. But how I wanted to start this today is, first of all, I will share my screen briefly to show you a beginning of what I prepared for you for PCS, for introducing the PCS today. But it will be a little bit hard because I think it is more important for you to see what I'm doing directly in the PCS, but let's start with the introduction anyways. First of all, most of you, when RNE's PCS is mentioned, most probably expect to hear from Matebak, and I don't know how, what Aleksandar already explained about the situation, but I have to say that I am privileged to continue his work in PCS, which is with this one of the most used application in RNE. So to start with, what is PCS for those who hear about it the first time? So PCS is the PAD coordination system, and it is used by applicants, both those that are railway undertakings and those that are not railway undertakings. And it is used by infrastructure managers and allocation bodies, and of course, by RFCs. And this is going to be a PCS introduction to newbies and a little bit aspect from how PCS is also used in quite a good and close cooperation with RFCs, because as I suppose, most of you are here precisely because of that good cooperation. So as I mentioned, PCS is really a system that is used widely, and only in the timetable period 2022, we had over 7,000 dossiers across all process types that are in the system. And this is really something that we have as a proud data to show, because it really shows that PCS is standing up to the standard and really being used for the PAD coordination. I would like to mention that if you want to start using it and you don't have an account yet, you don't have access to it yet, please feel free to contact us to our support email address. My colleague Anna will gladly and effectively help you to get familiar with it. Also, with any questions that you have for the PCS, so how the PCS works, and if you have any problems because you are already such an experienced user, we are there for you really the whole working week. So to start with, I would like to jump back and forth from this presentation to actual things that you will use as a new or already existing PCS user. And that is, first of all, that PCS has some kind of a particularities with which, of course, with the introduction of the capacity broker that Alex already mentioned, will change a bit, but nevertheless, I want to show you what with what you will work if you are going to use the PCS. So first of all, there is a CMS space in RNE's CMS content management system that is public to everybody and offers you really an in-depth view into what you can do in PCS. How you should start is, first, I would suggest going to the references to learn what the particularities of the system is. So what is the basic information, describing of the phases, all additional information about functionalities that are used in PCS. You also have process documents that will then connect your knowledge of the process and how the process actually is then incorporated in the functionalities of PCS. So everything you ever want to know about PCS and your first step of finding out the solution should always be this PCS documentation. You also have here some guides that will teach you how to how to create the dossiers, and in particular how to create the dossiers from PubSearch. We are going to do a little bit of demonstration directly in PCS today too, but I will really cover it vaguely and on a basic level, because I will later tell you where you can learn even more and even more details. So PCS guides on how to use something or how to make some kind of a functionality happen. So how to make an observation, how to harmonize a dossier, this here without pubs, but how to achieve what you want to do in PCS by using the features that PCS has. So this is really your go-to place, and for that one you don't need to have an account in CMS. It's a public space, but we still invite you to create one at the end. So this is how to use the CMS space, and I started with some kind of a particularities of PCS and what is in the system. So first of all, let's just see in which process types you can work in PCS, and that is actually all that you can think of. So PCS works for the new path request, for the late path request, for the ad hoc path request, even for rolling planning, and the path alternation and path modification is enabled in PCS too. There is also a separate TTR new path request as a process type, but those are for the pilot users that are trying out the same new path request features, but with a little bit difference in the dates and the deadlines. So this is everything that you imagine about the path coordination in those systems. You can find it there. Something also that is specific to the path request process is the phases that are enabled in PCS, depending on whether you're working with the dossiers with pubs or without pubs. Phases is the status of the dossier, and I will explain also what a dossier is in PCS, but it goes from open phase, where the leading applicant will open the dossier, create all the subpaths before it starts a harmonization between the applicants, so that they can arrange what kind of a path request they would like to send. Once they send the path request, then in path elaboration, it is an IM phase where the IMs then consider what would be the feasible path that they can offer. And then when they send the first draft offer, then we go into observations. Then it is again a phase where applicants are those that will observe and maybe even accept right away or go into the post-processing. And then in post-processing leads to the final offer that can then be either accepted or rejected. And we have the active timetable that is then an accepted offer that also leads to the signing of the contracts and so on. And after the train run is finished, then this dossier closes, but it can still be found in the archives if you ever need to use it again for the next timetable or reference it in any other way. So here in the PCS documentation, of course, all the phases are described really in details. You can learn what kind of access rights you will have within all the phases, and I will invite you to do this little quiz after we finish this presentation, where you can order and the phases to see if you know in which order this dossier lives in PCS. The presentation, and the question that you might have now is how to get familiar with PCS. So how to learn about PCS, even if you are already a user. There are a lot of new features that you can test out, and the answer is always try it first in test one. Here we have the list of the test accounts, and the passwords for each of them is the same. And then you have the login here, depending on whether you want to be a cargo or a passenger entity, or if you want to be an infrastructure. This is really the list that you can use. You can play with other roles. You can be somebody else. You can see, you can even accept the path request that is really so crazy that your IAM would never accept, but you can accept it in PCS and be happy for a day at least. For this example of mine, I'm going to be logged in as DB Cargo, and let's start a little bit in showing what the dossier is. Actually, before I do that, I would like to just mention how the PCS grows. And it each year in PCS, there are new functionalities, new features that makes your life easier to really have the harmonization with the click of your hand. And how we do that is through the groups that we establish. So we have a test group that tests the new feature. We have the user group that discuss, the members discuss what kind of changes can be implemented, how they should be implemented, and it is really a good way to incorporate your needs into the PCS. There is also a technical board which is connected more to the interface connection, and there is a change control board, which is the main, let's say, group that decides whether some changes will be implemented. It is in charge of the budget, and it is actually a group of IAMs, since this is then, let's say, the IAM application, but it is not only for the IAMs. Each year there are these change requests that I will put the link in the presentation that you will get, so you can easily see them, but I can show you right here. So there is a list of change requests each year when you can open a lot of those. For example, I wanted to show you that CSS community also places change requests within the PCS to make even more use of the features in PCS to help you as customers even better in assisting you and guiding you through this kind of path coordination. To go back then into the how to use the PCS, I have to say that today I'm focusing on the graphical user interface, and it is also important for you to know that it is possible to communicate with PCS via the interface connection too, And I have included here the link for those who want to know more. It is quite technical, but perhaps some of you will benefit of knowing this information. And in 2021, the ProRail received the path requests via interface connection for the first time in the history of PCS, and this is really a proud moment for us. And I want to emphasize it, even though the dossiers with RFCs are just in development, so you cannot really use the interface connection for those cases, but it is the future. It is something to be happy about and look forward. So we are going to see that in future too. The cargo applicant point of view is something that I would like to show you today. So we are going to open now to show you what happens once you log in into the PCS. So as I said, will log in as a DB cargo. And what I see here, maybe I can make this a little bit bigger. I hope you see it well. So you see here first the dashboard, where you can start a dossier with clicking on the dossier wizard or on the button of a new dossier. But that is something for a few steps afterwards. In the downloads, you will see all the reports that you can download across the system. And there is also a bulk editing option, because you will see these traffic lights. This is also something special, because you can set the green light when you want to accept everything that is in this current version of the dossier, meaning if you want to accept everything for all or a bunch of dossiers, you can do this in one click with the bulk editing. This is something that most of you will use in 80% of the cases, and this is where we approach to the pub search. We will open that later, and this is where you find the pubs that you are going to use in the dossier to create the path requests. In administration, there is a link to the reference data, meaning at any point you can see, for example, which operation points are there. Let's say for Germany now in this period. So you can always see what are the primary location codes. It will take a little time. My internet connection is not the fastest, but you can always check. You can always reference which locations you can use in the dossier then if you are going to create it from scratch. Because if you're going to use the pubs, this is already going to be done for you. Then for the reference data, you can see what are some IAM parameters that IAM specifically asks for you to give them as information, depending on the timetable period and each IAM individually. What are the locotypes that are registered in each country? What are the activity types that this IAM offers? You will have to accept the common mandatory, no, this is the common mandatory parameters that can be then set as mandatory for one IAM, while the other IAM doesn't need this information. So this is something for the IAMs. There is a new thing that is a template manager, because PCS allows you to save parameters in a template, so that if you need to do a lot of dossiers with the same parameters, for example, the same train and length and weight, then you are just going to save those numbers in the train parameters and reuse it across the system. So it really is user-friendly. And from this year, you can also edit the templates that you saved, which was not available previously. So there is also one thing that you will need to do once per timetable period for every RFC, and this is the acceptance of the general terms and conditions. PCS will remind you if you forget to do that on a particular dossier, but you can always also find it here. this is the link to the documentation that I already showed you and how to contact the support, but this is also some interesting features that I will show you here. You can see all the agencies, all the users that are in the system in case you need to know. And in the settings, you can set some kind of a personal settings of what you see in the dashboard, how many entries per page you want to see, what email notifications you want to receive. So it is really also customizable of what PCS can do. It can also be in different language if you want that, but for that you will have to also contact us so we can do that for you. Interesting part is this one, and that is the new thing that will be interesting to see also for the current users, is this preview of the timetable period. If we now look into the future, because this is something that you will use now from now on, in the timetable period 2023, there are some kind of milestones that they are defined deadline promotions and promotions that are done by PCS automatically. So all of that can, of course, be found in CMS if you want to go into documentation, into the references, and here you will see the document containing all the relevant dates that you need to know. But from now on, also, those are here, and you can really also connect it to this marking of X minus number. So you can really connect it to the timetable itself, where really the most important dates are highlighted and some things that you need to worry about and you need to keep in mind that the deadline is approaching. So with this, you can see exactly that, for example, there is a deadline for the draft timetable on the 4th of July this year, and so on and so on. It will be really a good reference directly from the system for everybody who wants to see on one glance when the next date that they need to know about exists. So going back to the main dashboard, it will last a lot of time if we go into every single little detail of this, but we need to give you just a rough overview of what you can see here. So, of course, the button for creating a new dossier. With this, you can make the right part of the screen a little bit bigger and hide the filters. For the filters, there are some filters that are here by default from the system, but you can also always save the filters that you do from the advanced search, and then you will have your own filters that will then be here, and you can easily search through your dossiers. So there is a quick search. You can search by the dossier ID, dossier name, international train number, PAP ID, or catalog ID. So for you, important that you can you can search with this PAP ID. This is something that customers of the corridors will mostly do. And this is the advanced search if you want to really go into depth about what kind of dossiers you're looking for. You can add more search criteria. For example, I want to see all the dossiers where Ergo is involved. This is for mine, but for maybe DB-Nets. And I will see then the dossiers that DB-Nets is participating in. And I said a lot of times this word dossier, and this is something that is really particular for PCS, because dossier for us is just a bunch of path requests that are merged together because they make sense together. This is a dossier. This is how you will see it. This is how you will use it. And every dossier and something that is most important if you will ever contact PCS support is this ID. So this is the number created generically by the PCS. So this is not something that you can do. It is individual for each dossier, and it will tell us that this is exactly the dossier that you want to check. So what is a dossier? Dossier is a bunch of tabs that will show you the details of your path requests. So in the basic data, you will see the participating companies, the involved agencies, if there are such. Sorry. And you will have here the option to do some kind of reportings if you want to export the already created timetables. Here is the control, and this is where you will switch the lights. For example, if you agree that your path request is correct, then you are going to accept it or not accept it. If here I cannot accept it because I'm missing a lot of things, and you see how PCS warns you if there is something missing. And let's accept the everything here. And then if I go back, I should no longer have the acceptance as a warning here that needs to be done. Okay, so this is something that you will always have to do once per period. You saw that I already had some kind of accepted ones, so I only needed to do that for those that I didn't do it already for the timetable period that we are talking about. So this is the control part, which will show you in which phase of a dossier you are at the moment, and the lights of your participating agencies that are involved in the dossier. I used here one pub, so one pub for RFC 9, and that is the reason and the way that the RFCs become part of the pubs, or of the dossiers. When you're using pubs, then you are introducing RFCs into the dossier as also an entity that promotes the dossier from one phase to another in the name of IAMS. And this is the change. There is a pre-booking phase that happens after the path request deadline and before we send the path request to the IAMS. There is a comment section, and there is something new, and that is the filtering option of the comments. So all the comments placed during the lifetime of a dossier will be visible here. Talking about the lifetime of the dossier, here you will see the history of the dossier, and it will be the preview of how you worked with the dossier. You will see that I created this dossier a few minutes before I joined. And this is just who did it and in which phase. And then I led this dossier through the feasibility study conference because I wanted to get this IAM timetable quickly because I have one feature to show you that I needed it. So you will see in which version, and you can access each version. If I go here, you will see that you're viewing an archive version where I only had the applicant timetable, and you can always follow what you did and also what the participating agencies did. Going back to the current version of the dossier, you will here see the applicant IAM, and later, once we reach the pre-booking phase, the COSS timetable will also appear here. And the timetables are just separated by who created them. So applicant timetable is, of course, created by the applicant, the IAM timetable by IAMs, and the CSS timetable is the copy of the applicant timetable, which was born, let's say like that, which was created when the path request was sent. A little bit to the presentation so that we can see what I mentioned. So phases is something that we went through, and then we go to the most used section of the PCS, I guess, for all of you now listening, and that is the usage of PUPs, the pre-constructed product, and how you can search for a PUP is, of course, here you would choose that you want to search for PUPs. You need to insert in PCS everything that is marked with the red asterisk, meaning this is without that, you will not get the information. So with red asterisk, you need to input that. So direction of the PUPs, I will select it all just to show you the lot of PUPs that we have now in PCS, but as a test versions. And for corridors, I will use this one that is a little bit something that I can use with this applicant. So if I search for the PUPs in Rhine-Donau, I will see that I can use this one. So let's do that, because with the clicks and in the order that I clicked with, I will have the option to add those PUPs with the ID that you see on the screen that is defined by the corridors. You can select those and add them to the new dossiers. And you will see this, what I mentioned. First, the first PUP is part of the PUP is added, and then the second. It is not a correct completely, and I am aware of that, but I will not focus now on that. I want to show you some particularities that you need to focus on. So first of all, the calendars. Here, PCS will tell you that this PUP is available all days of the week, from 1 to 7. I'm not sure if I will find any that are not here, okay? But in case the PUP, here, in case PUP is only available from Tuesday to Thursday, and on Saturdays, you will see it here in a first glance before you even use it. So let's do that. I'm going to create a new dossier for you to see, and I use this two parts of the PUP with the same ID, and I will continue. And I can see with the blue color that this is indeed a PUP. And I will not change anything here today. And as I mentioned, the red things are the things that you really need to insert. Everything that is yellow can be left empty for the time being, but you will not be able to send the path request if you do not fulfill every single thing that it is asked for from you by the IAMs, and to that extent by PCS. So the dossier level data now here is shown for each IAM, and we will skip it now, but I advise you to fulfill it as you go. We remember that this dossier, that this PUPs was available for all days. So if you want to check the availability, you just choose the dates, check the availability, and if everything is okay, you will get no warnings, and you can continue, and you will create a dossier soon. So there is a preview, there is an outline. So this train would go from München to Pilsen. And let's do it like this. This is just my abbreviation. And I created the dossier, and this is the first step of what I will do as a leading applicant. I'm in the open phase in the first version of the dossier, and here it is the pop sections that I choose to have. You will see also particularity is the territory. The territory marks the applicant and the IM pair. And if I don't choose another applicant in the open phase, it can be me. Of course, again, this is not the correct use case usually, but it will stay like this. Use and what features that you can do with dossier is something that I would invite you, and I hope I can, to PCS trainings that are organized each year by the rail freight corridors. And there we cover all the basics, or all the advanced features, all the old and new features. So you will really, after those trainings, please allocate some time and attend them. Even if you are already advanced users, come to the trainings, and you will see that you will refresh your memory, you will learn a lot new, and I think it will be really beneficial for everybody to see. Maybe the newest functionalities from the 2021 useful for applicants. It is really just a basic things that I listed here, and of course there are even more important things, even less important things. It all depends on the view, but perhaps I wanted to show you that now you can add a read-only IM to the dossier. That is really useful. I will not open it, but it is really useful if you want to make some IM that you are not placing the path request with. You want to make him aware that there is a dossier that they would like to know that exists, because in 2 days time you might place a path request that is independent of this dossier. So really one change in the system that is really useful. The other one that is the biggest change that we had is the appointing of the RU. And this is something that I will also show you a little bit, because it's really a thing that maybe a lot of you will use. For that one, I will go just a little bit back and go into this dossier that I created here. And you see this button, I am DB Cargo, but I can say that on the second subpart that is running on Tuesday, I want that somebody else runs the train for me. I will do it to, I don't know. Let's say that's like this, not like this one, but this one, or the first that is available, doesn't matter. So now if I save the responsible RU, it means that on the Mondays, I will run my train, but on Tuesdays, some other RU will run my train. How this is going to be used is a little bit more sophisticated than how I showed this to you. It will be the case where you are the applicant that is a non-RU applicant, and then you will assign the RUs on the subpaths that you are going to ask for a path request. This is also something that we have here as a recording from Mate, where this feature is really in-depth explained, and I advise you to take it if you are interested in using this feature. But also there is one feature that is a check of a missing running days, and I know that I'm a little bit over time, but promise we will stop with this soon. It is really not a lot of time to even give you a little preview. But this is one of the most useful CRs that FT Forum 3 in Europe ordered in PCS to help applicants check what is the difference between what they requested and what they got. And this is why I needed 2 timetables. So I will go into the territory calendars and I will check the difference now with the first subpath that I ordered as an applicant, and then what I got in the IM timetable. So this will tell you that the blue ones is you ordered what you got what you ordered. So it's the same. But the green ones mean that those days are only contained in the IM timetable. So this will, you can switch it. You can compare IM to IM. Of course, this will always be the same. Or if you first compare to the IM timetable to applicant, it tells you the same, that those with red are only always in the IM timetable. So this is the function that is new from 2021. It is really something that I know from the feedbacks that we received from the FTE users primarily, something that is widely used and really helpful to determine whether you got the days that you actually in a bad place. Maybe also just as information, there was we are no longer having applicants that are only cargo or only passengers. So now one RU can be both. The only difference is that while creating the new dossier, there will be a drop down where they choose for which train type they want to create this dossier. Of course, by using PUPs, this is by default for the cargo. And to conclude, and thank you for your patience and bearing with me until I get to the end of this, I would like to call all applicants to join our PCS groups. We really want to see your opinions. We really want to hear your problems. And if you're still not using PCS, then please start and use this application and the system actually that we are developing for you and that you are going to benefit on a daily basis. So with that, I will conclude and thank you to everybody who listened. And if you have any questions, then I would open the Q&A or go back to Miloš.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ivona. And as you say that we want you, because it's very important. Yes, important is every opinion, question, remarks, and of course the presentation was really interesting also for me because I spent a lot of time in passenger, and then it's mostly used PCS more or less in cargo. And yes, now the dear participant, the floor is yours, and time again for your questions, of course also for your opinions and also remarks. So please.
I hope you didn't fall asleep, at least that.
No. But maybe somebody will start with.
Well, if not, that means that it was all perfectly clear, and I mean that also makes me happy because that means that you really know what PCS is about, how you can start using PCS if you are not already using it, and how it would benefit you in your daily business. And of course, I think you will get the information of when the PCS trainings will be held on the week starting from the 14th of February. I invite you there. We will go into a lot more depth about using the PCS. Actually, this was a really vague presentation today, but hopefully then at least this will increase the number of participants in 3 weeks, 4.
Yes, I think that presentation was really very clear and also transparent. And yes, in many cases, you know, we can expect that questions come in mind later. And of course, all is welcome to send their questions also later direct to Ivona.
Of course. But we do have one question. Marek, thank you for that. Is PCS available in different languages? And of course, yes, you can use PCS in your own language, and this is translated to your own language. So feel free to use it however you think it fits you best.
Oh, okay. Maybe we still wait some minutes or not,
Of course.
or we can.
You're welcome, Marek.
A lot of questions maybe tomorrow and some days later, but
well, we are looking forward.
It's also this PCS test, and all of us can participate. And yes, additional questions are of course very welcome. And if you don't have at the moment some questions or opinion, I must repeat, thank you for your participation. All of participating today and intention to gain new insight on TTR and also PCS. On behalf of Rail Freight Corridor and RNE, I wish all of you nice rest of the day and look forward to meeting you at the next meeting on 3rd March, where, as mentioned, the topics will be train information system and rail facility portal. It will be very interesting. And in the end, Phil, again, thank you, Ivona and Aleksandar, and thank you also to Susanna Kopfer for all cooperation and help in preparing today's session. And be healthy. And from my side, on behalf of all RFC Network and RNE, I wish you all the best and thank you for participation.
Thank you, Miloš. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.